So, should we bring in the closer? And
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. We are at episode number 94, inching ever closer towards 100 at the century mark. Opening days tomorrow. Got lots to talk about. My name is Davis Bird. As always, the frozen screen man himself, Jake Crumpler. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's like all 3 pixels of you that I can see.
Hey, we're fine. Honestly, it's probably better for the people that are viewing this on YouTube and watching live, because then they don't have to see my face as much. But as long as they can hear me, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, sound great. How you been doing? I know you've been battling your black plague, COVID. What's been going on?
Yeah, no, I had COVID. You were out of town the week before that. I was recovering for like a week. There's been a lot going on. You know, we had like all our drafts and everything. It's just like the craziest time of the year. And then it all builds up to tomorrow, which is opening day, which I'm super pumped for. So I'm glad I got the COVID out of the way. It's my second bout with COVID, but you know, I won again, undefeated, 2-0.
Nice. Way to go. Way not to get dead from COVID. We're in for a long one. So if you're joining us, just be prepared for multiple hours worth of this. But we're going to go ahead and start with the transactions because we got a lot to catch up on. A whole lot has happened. We're going to start with the first bit that we missed, and it's the Red Sox extending young starter Brayan Bello for 6 years, worth $54 million. It's got a $21 million club option in 2030 with a $1 million buyout. It also has a bunch of bonuses and escalators based on Cy Young Award voting and all-star selections in there. Pretty standard fare. Bello, it's kind of going to have to be a cornerstone of this rotation that looks to be pretty bad this year and most likely next. But Bello, pretty solid. What are your thoughts here?
I think it's smart. I think Bello's got a lot of potential. One of their top prospects for a while. He definitely does need to take a step forward, though, to warrant the money that he's getting paid for this. And on top of that, the rotation in Boston is in bad shape now with all of the injuries that they've dealt with. And they were already in a position where they couldn't really afford to miss out on production from anybody. So now it's Giolito hitting the shelf with Tommy John surgery. They're really going to be leaning on Bello and the rest of that young rotation to lead them to glory. But I think it's great to see young players get paid, and hopefully this isn't one of those deals. There's like a dual side of the coin here. It's like one case you want the player to succeed, and in one case you want you don't want the team to like overspend or like a player to become villainized by the fan base because he's earning money that he doesn't deserve. So, you know, I'd love to see Bello succeed, but I also don't want him to get into a situation where it's like, oh wow, they really screwed him over, giving him $54 million over 6 years. But you know, I'd rather have him succeed than that happen.
Definitely so. And we can move on to another pitcher-related transaction also involving a Sox team, and it's the White Sox finally trading Dylan Cease. Felt like this saga has been going on all offseason. White Sox complete teardown. They traded Dylan Cease to the Padres in exchange for Drew Thorpe, Samuel Zavala, Jairo Iriarte, and Steven Wilson. Cease, it felt like they probably should have traded him either a little bit earlier or last season, if anything, because this return, while it's decent, I feel like they most likely would have gotten more last season. But the Padres still sort of trying to stay competitive. Obviously lost Blake Snell, which we'll talk about again in a little bit. They replaced him with Dylan Cease. So what's the outlook for the Padres here? What do you think of the prospect return, and how are you feeling about Dylan Cease and his chances to sort of bounce back this season in more of a pitcher-friendly park?
Yeah, I think the return for the White Sox is solid enough. It's not like big top 100 prospects or like top 50 prospects that everybody knows their name. But a lot of these guys have had success. Zavala is very interesting as a young outfielder. He's 19, and as an 18-year-old in A-ball last year, he was 18 and 14 home runs, 20 stolen bases. So he's got power, speed, and he walked a ton. So I think he's super interesting, still very far away. And I think Iriarte has had a little bit of run in terms of prospect circles. He's only 22 and he's a pitcher. So no such thing as a pitching prospect. But Drew Thorpe was like the minor league pitcher of the year last year. Steven Wilson should be in run for the closer role. But I am agreeing with you in that they should have traded Cease earlier. But actually, I really think they should have traded him mid-season this year. Just with everything that happened last year, I think he took so much of his trade value away that just like a half season of him proving I'm actually legit, which
Right.
I know we sort of know what Cease is. He's very similar to Blake Snell in that he's going to walk everybody's, but he's going to get a ton of strikeouts. He's going to be pretty solid. So from the Padres side, I think it's pretty good that they got him this year. It's interesting that they were able to like acquire Drew Thorpe in the Soto deal and then ship him back off for Cease. So, good job maneuvering there. But the thing with Cease in San Diego is that he is going to the best pitcher's ballpark in baseball in San Diego, especially during the summer months. And that on top of him going to a different pitching development organization, not necessarily saying that San Diego is better than Chicago, though I think it is. Just him leaving there leaves open the door wider for him to be able to make a change and become a better pitcher than we've seen, either incorporating a cutter, something to attack left-handed batters with, because he's big fastball slider, which is good against righties, not too great against lefties, or maybe he starts throwing more strikes. We'll see how that works out. But I mean, Blake Snell sort of did the same thing, went to San Diego and he won a Cy Young last year. So there is a big chance that this is the path that Cease takes. But yeah, I would have liked to see the White Sox wait a little, but I think they got some pretty solid pieces. And I think the Padres were really smart to get Cease, especially with the state of their team wasn't looking too great and they were running out of options to upgrade.
Yeah, definitely. It sort of felt like they had to add somebody and pickings were getting pretty slim. I'm happy they added Cease. I think I'm not nearly as bullish on him being good again this year. I think there's a lot of things that sort of go against him, mainly the fact that he just doesn't throw strikes. And that's sort of a non-starter for me. It kind of came back to bite him last year. I'm hoping that the fly ball or the home run to fly ball percentage will drop dramatically, because that was also a big issue for him last year, giving up a lot of home runs, walking world, sort of a struggle. Only downside is good pitchers park, pretty tough division to pitch in, just in general, outside of the Padres. Or outside of Petco. You got the Dodgers team is sort of a super team.
Dodgers.
Yeah. It's late every year. The Dodgers obviously have a super team. The Giants look much improved. Plus, you have to pitch in cores. That's always going to be difficult. So, I don't know. I sort of like the outlook for the Padres. I'm not crazy about Cease, so I'm happy that their prospect return was not super excellent or anything. From their sort of depleted farm system, but we can move on. And the Braves have signed an old friend in Adam Duvall in a deal worth 1 year for $3 million. Really, really good before he got hurt last year. Sort of came back, not nearly as good near the end of the season, but still lottery ticket. He'll go back to the Braves and he'll post like 3 WAR and hit 1 million home runs probably in the playoffs. So
yeah, this is his third run with the team.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, he played in 2019 and 20 and 2022, and all of those were some of the best years of his career.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
he's even left to go to the Marlins, and they traded for him back, and he was still great. It's like, come on.
Yeah, Adam Duvall's really had an interesting career, and he's been around for so long. I still can't believe the Giants got rid of him. But anyway, in real baseball, he will platoon with Jared Kelenic in left field, which is fine. Like with the way the Braves are currently built, it's like there's not many places you can upgrade, and if just like making your lineup better versus left-handers is the most ideal upgrade, then go for it. Especially because we haven't seen Kelenic prove himself against left-handed pitchers, so I think that's great. It's a great sort of plan if things don't go right. Like it's a contingency there, a contingency plan if Kelenic doesn't figure things out, which I really hope he does. But yeah, this team is primed for a deep playoff run as they have been for the last few years.
Definitely. So we can talk about another outfield addition. This time it's one that, weirdly enough, I've talked about like 4 podcasts in a row. It's the Pirates signing Michael A. Taylor. 1 year deal worth $4 million for Michael A. Taylor, the GOAT. So I think the Pirates have a solid little team here. brewing. A couple guys that sort of fill a couple roles to make way for their young stars and really give them some breathing room. A lot of solid bets now. How are you feeling here about this move? This is more of sort of a nothing-ish move, but still solid veteran piece to add to a team that is looking to try to move one stage forward in their rebuild.
Yeah, I just think Michael A. Taylor is really underrated. Like, he's never really been a good hitter. There's 1 year in his career where he's like above average WRC plus. Every other year he's below. But he's a guy that's going to have power and speed. And while he won't walk a lot and he'll probably strike out a lot, won't hit for a high average, the production he brings on the defensive end makes up for all of that. He only has to be a league average hitter or close to league average hitter to be a replacement level bat, or to be like an average major leaguer at 2 WAR. And that's what we've seen in the past couple of years. Last year was almost one of the best years of his career. And over the past few years, I think he's been very consistent when he is getting playing time. And with the current construction of the Pirates, I really think that they were smart to go for a more defensive-minded center fielder, because before the addition of Taylor, they were looking at Jack Sawinski in center field and Brian Reynolds in right, and then, figuring things out in left field with Olivares and Andrew McCutchen. So now with Taylor in center and Sawinski now moving to left or right field, I think their defense gets much better, and it makes the lineup deeper than you would expect. And I'm really excited to see what this Pirates team can do. They just have so many fun players. O'Neal Cruz is about to go crazy. I think Brian Reynolds is very underrated. Brian Hayes is going to have a breakout that rivals O'Neal's, and then Sawinski, McCutchen are very fun. And even Henry Davis down there at the bottom of the lineup, I think, could have a bonkers year. And so this could be the year where the Pirates don't make the playoffs, but they are like the fun team. They're the fun team that everybody is rooting for. And then next year is the year where they finally break through.
This feels like the Pirates could be this year's Reds from last year, if everything goes right.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a huge step for them, because there's not really been a whole lot to look forward to or be excited about for Pirates baseball for the last 4 or 5 years. So this would be a huge step for them. It's like the one team in the division. I'm a Cubs fan, so it's like the one team in the division that I always typically hope is pretty decent. I like the Pirates more than the other teams in the division. They're just fun. So hopefully that they can turn a corner. Speaking of teams that are bad, but this time probably not going to be taking a next step, the Oakland A's for now have signed J.D. Davis to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. It's got $1 million worth of incentives baked in there, and he probably becomes one of, if not the top 3 hitters on that team, which is really showing you just how good the Oakland A's lineup is.
Yeah, it is crazy that the Giants didn't even have to trade him. They just released him, and he immediately became their everyday third baseman. It's wild. JD Davis has always been a guy that I think has a lot of potential. And he's proven in the past that he can be an above league average bat, but there always feels like there's another level he can get. I don't think he's reaching that this year, especially in Oakland, especially with that lineup around him. But hey, at least he'll be able to play every day, which maybe will give him not only a sense of comfort that he's not going to be worried about losing his job, but maybe without the pressure of living up to everything that he had to in New York or in San Francisco when they acquired him. Maybe now he'll finally be able to break out. But either way, 2.5 mil, the A's are, scraping the bargain bin like they always do. And I think JD Davis could be very interesting, but it's not going to make a difference because the A's suck.
Yeah, they're really, really bad. We can cross the bay pretty quickly and talk about the Giants, because we just talked about them releasing JD Davis. They signed a pretty big one, though, to sort of fill a roster spot. And this time they add to the rotation with pretty big addition. Blake Snell got a 2-year deal worth $62 million. It's effectively a 1+1 because there's an opt-out after 2024. And Blake Snell gets his deal, gets to go to the cheating lab. That's going to be pretty big for the program.
Honestly, it's crazy how this offseason has worked out.
Ever again? What if he just never walks anyone ever again because of the Giants cheating lab? He just strikes out 27 batters a game every game for the rest of the season.
I would love to see him do some crazy stuff. But the way this offseason has worked out for the Giants, I mean, you've been able to see it full time through my eyes of just missing out on Ohtani and being like, this is the worst offseason of all time. I'm going to kill myself. To hey, look, we got a couple guys. We got Jung-Hoo Lee and Robbie Ray and Jorge Soler. Yay. Like, hey, we're not like sitting pat. And then being like, it's so clear we need Matt Chapman, and going out and getting Matt Chapman. And then being like, you know what? Let's freaking double down. Let's just go get Blake Snell. And they just kept going. They just kept adding people, getting all the discounts for the Boris 4. And I think Snell's going to fit really well here. Like you mentioned, the cheating lab, any pitcher going through that is going to come out the other end really good. I don't know if you saw the other day, Jordan Hicks, 5 innings with 10 strikeouts. Yeah, that's that could be fun. But this sort of became a necessity as the Giants kept seeing injuries to their rotation and their bullpen. Alex Cobb's currently injured, but he'll be back sooner than expected. But Tristan Beck had an upper arm aneurysm. Robbie Ray's not back for a while. Sean Helly was supposed to be one of the deeper guys that they would have available. And then everybody just kept getting injured, and there were no starters you could really rely on. So now Snell, who likely won't start for the first turn through the rotation, really lengthens this rotation and makes it into one that at full strength is somewhat legit, with like Logan Webb, Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, Blake Snell, Alex Cobb, and Robbie Ray. That's really a legitimate rotation.
Yeah, that's a really, really good rotation. I'm hoping that they're going to end up being a playoff team. The Giants are one of the teams that it feels like postseason baseball is better when the Giants are in it, especially giving some sort of run for like the Dodgers just running away with the division again is always going to be good. One-sided divisional races are boring. It sucks, obviously, unless your team's winning it, which is the best in the world at that point. But I would like to see the Giants be able to push the Dodgers to the limit. And I think Blake Snell really moves the needle that way. It's honestly like it's gone from the last offseason. It's like, okay, this was a nightmare. Like missed out on Judge, missed out on Correa. Then it's like, okay, missed out on Ohtani at the start of this one. It's like, all right, this is gonna go all over again. This is awful. The worst thing that possibly could happen. They've had a great offseason. It's genuinely been one of, if not the best in all of baseball at this point. And it's just really, really cool to see. We can go ahead and move on to a few more moves because we've still got a lot of them to make, but it's another pitching move, and this time it's the Phillies re-signing Michael Lorenzen to a one-year deal worth $4.5 million. It comes baked with $2.5 million worth of incentives in there. So Michael Lorenzen returns, obviously traded there. Jake disappeared. Obviously, Michael Lorenzen got traded mid-season to the Phillies from the Tigers. He was their all-star representative, which shows you just how bad the Tigers were. Michael Lorenzen had a pretty solid season last year, actually lengthening their rotation and then going into the bullpen for their sort of ill-fated run where they inevitably lost to the Diamondbacks, but he most likely is going to fill a back into the rotation spot for them. He's still kind of been like weird-ish in terms of how like the signing's gone. I think he's been dealing with an injury and he's going to start in AAA, which is going to be sort of a weird one. But yeah, Michael Lorenzen, pretty solid addition here for the Phillies. We can move on to one of the most important ones while I wait for Jake to come back. And this one is the Mets staying in the NL East, signing JD Martinez to a one-year deal worth $12 million. That kind of put me pretty behind the eight ball in terms of mine and Jake's free agent rankings when we did the rankings and we did the contract predictions. JD Martinez ended up sort of being one that kind of took me out of it, which we'll get to again. Jake's back. Hey, everybody, look at that. I
realized I was connected to the wrong Wi-Fi.
Way to go. I already went over Michael Lorenzen, and I'm assuming you don't want to add anything about Michael Lorenzen.
No, that was a good call. Good call to jump down to old Mike.
He's actually not even going to start this. He's been dealing with the injury, so he's going to start in AAA anyway. So
that's JD Martinez and Lorenzen?
No, Lorenzen. It's just Lorenzen. He's going to start.
JD Martinez is starting the year in the minors.
Oh well, sick. Yeah. So JD Martinez signed with the Mets, 1 year, $12 million dues. This one was sort of like a weird team fit for me because it feels like the Mets are still towing the line between contending and not.
They
And
can still trade him.
they still, yeah, that's why I'm saying like they could still trade him. And I'm assuming they will likely trade him because I think the Mets will be probably a 500 baseball team this year.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything you wanted to add on JD, or can we just keep moving?
No, we can keep moving.
Sick. We get to talk about our favorite baseball team in the entire world, the Colorado Rockies, because they extended young shortstop Ezekiel Tovar for 7 years, $63.5 million. It's got a $23 million club option for 2031 that has a $2.5 million buyout. This one sort of came out of the blue, but Tovar has been a really, really underrated player, especially in like fantasy circles. Really solid player. Honestly, the Rockies have just been doing this though, where it's like any player that has any value to them at all, that like they're just trying to not let them leave at this point because it's just been a complete disaster for them. So how are you feeling about Tovar?
I mean it's smart for them to do that, just given how much money they're going to end up saving on him, because he's a solid defender. I think he's going to be at least an average major leaguer, which maybe they end up paying too much, but I think it's fine. I don't think it really makes too much difference in like the big major baseball landscape in general. But yeah, I think good for the Rockies. We love the Rockies.
Yeah, anything the Rockies do is just surprising. So sick. We have a couple more to go over. This one is the one that really, really put the nail in the coffin for my free agent predictions.
Yep.
And our little competition we've been doing. And this one's Jordan Montgomery signing with the Diamondbacks for 1 year, $25 million. It's got a vesting option for $20 million in 2025. He can opt out if he starts 10 games in 2024. Super weird one. The option boost to yeah, I would love that. That would be hilarious. The option boosts to $22.5 million with 18 games started and $25 million with 23 games started. This one was sort of one that came out of the blue today. I think it was today. Just a weird one. I didn't really see this one from the Diamondbacks, but good for them, doubling down, trying to continue their window of contention.
Yeah, I think it was a smart move by them. I was honestly very surprised to see the quote-unquote Boris 4 signed before opening day. I really did not think that would be the case, but I'm glad they all did, since they're all pretty big names in the baseball landscape, so you want them around there. But yeah, I think given the injuries the Diamondbacks were dealing with, Eduardo Rodriguez, Paul Sewald, it's smart for them to go out and get Jordan Montgomery. I don't think that they have too much pitching depth in the rotation that gives me a lot of confidence. Like, they were already starting to turn to Tommy Henry as their fifth starter before they got Montgomery, and that's already like starting the season out with Tommy Henry. Nothing against the guy, but yeah, not great at all. But now that they got Jordan Montgomery, they've actually got a legitimate rotation at full strength, one that will push Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson to the bottom of the rotation. And then when Erod's back, Ryan Nelson will be out of it. So at that point, you're running Merrill Kelly, Jordan Montgomery, Zach Gallen, and Eduardo Rodriguez with Brandon Pfaadt as your five. That's a very, very strong rotation with a lot of floor, which I think is the best part. I wouldn't say there's tons of ceiling here, but a lot of all these guys are very safe, very solid, and it should help them work their way back towards winning another NL pennant.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the move. It's another one of the deals that a lot of those Boris guys have been getting, which are the like high dollar amount over a short term, with like typically like an option or a 1+1 sort of deal, like we saw it with Snell. We've seen sort of like an inverse here where he has an option where he can opt in instead of it being the 2 years with an opt out. It just felt like the long-term deals just weren't there, but they did sort of maximize the dollar amount, and all of them ended up on teams where they're pretty much in chances to contend, at least for a division like crown. So it's decent workings from sort of a weird situation. And it's been probably a really, really NL West heavy transactions list. And that's going to continue right now. And it's because the Dodgers extended star catcher Will Smith for $140 million spread out over 10 years. one of the better young catchers in the game. Probably top 5, maybe top 3.
Yeah.
Great catcher, Will Smith.
I think it's a super low deal, and it's
I thought so too.
It honestly might be bad for catchers as a whole. Like the thing that Yasmani Grandal did when he first hit free agency, and he took like a 1-year deal and then went back on the free agent market to sign a multi-year deal with the White Sox at the time, was so that he could help future catchers get paid because they had always been underpaid. And it's things like this that make that happen. 14 million for, like you said, a top 5, maybe top 3 catcher at a position where there's so few good catchers that it's like the best one should be getting paid bonkers amounts. Right. Like we see pitchers getting paid $40 million at the age of 35. And you think one of the best catchers in baseball should be making $14 million a year. It should be closer to 30 million. This should be a guy that is worth more like 10 years, 300 million, probably less because he's got arbitration eligibility still. I think this deal should have been closer to 200 million than 150. But the Dodgers are pulling Braves moves now. They're deferring everything. They're finding ways to extend everybody on the roster. This is their 3rd extension of the offseason. And I think they were really smart to do so. Will Smith, I think, is underrated. Like you said, top 3, top 5 catcher. He's really good, and they're going to have him really cheap, and that'll allow them to continue to stay under the luxury tax as they go out and get some of the biggest names in baseball and continue to lose in the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like Will Smith did them a favor with this deal because he's making $14 million a year on average now, which is less than like Wilson Contreras got. Catchers are just not getting paid, and I agree with your take where it's like the best catchers, especially offensively and defensively, because Will Smith is good at both. Like better offensive player than defensive player, but still a good defender. Like he should be getting paid. Really paid. And now it's like, okay, you've taken this deal where I know you're helping the Dodgers out, but you're screwing over other catchers because now this will be the benchmark. It's like, well, if you're not as good as Will Smith, you shouldn't be making as much as Will Smith. It's like, well, that sucks. Like, I don't know.
I saw the
great for the Dodgers,
deal.
Sucks for the catcher market.
Yeah, for real. I saw the deal that Buster Posey signed back in 2013. He signed an extension. Do you want to guess how much he got over 9 years?
Over 9 years?
Obviously, Posey's better than Smith. Like he's Hall of Fame level, but
70 million.
167 million over 9 years. This was 11 years ago. Years ago. Buster Posey got not only more total money than Will Smith, but also on a per year basis. He got more money in total in fewer years. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think Will Smith should have had 200 million in the bag.
Well, damn, Wilson Contreras got 87.5 over 5 years. And Wilson Contreras is a worse defender and worse offensive player.
What is that per year?
So it's 17.5. I think it escalated to 18. I think it was
exactly.
I think it was backloaded, or the first year was less money or something like that, where it's like he makes $18 million a year, and now Will Smith's making like 14. Like that's
so even with the current precedent of catchers being paid too little, he still should have been getting 200. If we were at a point where catchers were getting paid what they deserved, he'd get 250.
Right. Did Real Muto sign an extension?
Wasn't it just a free agent deal with the Phillies?
Right. I thought, Real Muto's deal isn't worth that. Like, is not worth that much comparatively. Like, Real Muto and Will Smith genuinely are, in my mind, are comparable players. Would you agree? They're both probably if you wanted to say top 5, they're both in the top 5. JT Real Muto makes about $24 million a year. Will Smith cut them a break where he's making almost $10 million less than that. JT makes like 23.8 a year or something like that.
Yeah, and Yasmani got 73 over 4 years, which was 18.25, and that was like one of the biggest deals. I thought Real Muto got extended. I thought he got 100 million.
Yeah, he did. His whole contract is now it's 5 years, 115.5 million guaranteed. So
And that's 20 something, right?
yeah, so he'll be a free agent in 2026 and he's
23.
making $23.875 million a year. And so that's
That's crazy. Half.
almost $10 million less for Will Smith, who in my mind, JT Realmuto and Will Smith are close. If not like for like in terms of output, they're close. They're like within a hand, like they're an arm's reach away. Thanks. Thanks, Gus. Like I don't know.
Ewald? Is that Ewald? Nothing. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Goofy deal for Will Smith. Way to go, Bozo.
For sure. Yeah, the Dodgers make me hate him once again.
Yeah, way to go. One more transaction to talk about.
Final move of the offseason.
Yeah, best move of the offseason, too. The Marlins traded John Birdie to the Yankees in exchange for John Cruz and Shane Sasaki. So it was a 3-team deal. The Tampa Bay Rays were involved in there, whatever. The Rays get Ben Rortvedt from the Yankees as well. He was one of the big pieces that was involved in the Josh Donaldson trade when he went to from the Twins to the Yankees. Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela went like the other way. I think Ben Rortvedt went with Ben Rortvedt went with Josh Donaldson and like Isaiah Kiner for left or something like that. So one of the pieces, one of the big dominoes from that trade's finally falling again. He's going to go to the Rays.
Yeah, was it Ben Rortvedt was in the Josh Donaldson trade?
Yeah.
Both of the guys the Marlins got are very weird. John Cruz, I think, is what I've heard is he's already a top 200 prospect and he's on his way to being a top 50 prospect. He's going to be 18 this year. Last year he played in CPX. I always forget what that is. But he is just beginning his major league career. And Shane Sasaki played in high A last year, and he was 22, which is pretty old for the level. So we'll see how that works out. I think he's somewhat interesting. 3rd-round pick in 2019. I mean, honestly, I think the Marlins got I think they got a great deal here. Just getting like high upside minor leaguers for somebody like John Birdie, who wasn't going to see a lot of playing time and who I never really thought was that great. Obviously, he's really fast. He's probably going to steal 30 bases easy if he plays. Actually, last year he played 133 games, a career high, and only stole 16 bases. It's really weird.
Wizard.
Yeah, but he's a very average player. He's going to be 34 this year, which is crazy. I thought he was younger than that. I think it's fine for the Yankees to get a utility guy like that can play everywhere and be fast. And I've always been somewhat interested in Ben Rortvedt. I don't know if you've seen a picture of that guy, but he is yoked.
He's huge.
Yeah. And the Rays should be able to do a lot with him. But yeah, this is a very minor deal, but there's going to be a point in like 5 years or maybe even 10 years where we're like, holy shit, where did the Marlins get John Cruz? Who let them have John Cruz? And it's like, oh, the Yankees traded him for John Birdie. And we'll be like, what were they thinking?
What a weird trade.
Yeah.
But that's wrapping up our transactions. Run through our free agent prediction results really quick. Because we did.
Yeah, we did free agent predictions again, just like we did last year. I need to update the scoring a little bit. I think we should be getting more points for getting the team correctly. But basically, it's like you get 10 points if you get everything correct, which is nearly impossible. But if you get close, you get 7 points. And then for everything you get right, you get 2 points. So if you get the team right or the value of the contract or the per year value or the length of the contract, you get 2 points. And then if nobody got it right, whoever's closer gets 1 point. But yeah, basically, we weren't great across a lot of it. It didn't help that the Boris 4 were subverting our expectations in terms of contracts and that we had some of this same exact guesses. That's probably due to us using MLB trade rumors as a reference. But I think some of the best predictions where you predicted Matt Chapman to the Giants, which was pretty cool. I predicted the exact years Shota Imanaga would get, but you predicted he would go to the Cubs. That's two really good ones for you. The craziest thing was us both guessing Eduardo Rodriguez would sign a 4-year, $80 million deal. That's exactly what he got. I got Lourdes Gurriel Jr.'s contract exactly right, 3 years, 42, but you got the team right. I had the correct number of years for Jorge Soler. The same with Seth Lugo, but you got his deal exactly, 3 years, 45 million. And I correctly predicted Rhys Hoskins to the Brewers. So it's really hard to pick the teams. Davis picked 3 teams correctly, which I think should give him some more points. We'll implement that next year. But I ended up scoring 45 to Davis's 39. So it came down to the final couple of free agent predictions, but I came out on top. Davis won last year, so we're even. And do this again next year. We'll do this again next year.
Definitely. So we can get to our offseason reviews again, and we're going to be going through 2 today, which is going to be
marathon.
We're going to be going NL Central into NL West, and we can start with my favorite baseball team, which is the Chicago Cubs. So we've been doing reviews of all their additions, subtractions, extensions, anything like that. We've been talking about their moves, and we've been giving them a grade. We're not doing pluses, anything like that, just strict letter grade. And we can run through who all they've added. They have added Shota Imanaga through free agency, Yency Almonte through free agency. Yency Almonte was from the Dodgers. Hector Neris, David Peralta, Cody Bellinger, and Garrett Cooper through free agency, and then a trade.
That was a trade.
Yeah, it was Yency Almonte and Michael Busch in the same trade. So Yency Almonte, Michael Busch traded the Dodgers. They have subtracted, however, Michael Fulmer, Jeimer Candelario, and Marcus Stroman through free agency. And then in that aforementioned trade with the Dodgers, they lost out on top pitching prospect Jackson Ferris. No extensions to speak of. I think this was a pretty good offseason, all things considered. It's difficult to look at it in like a vacuum because they were one of the teams like the Giants that were rumored in terms of like the Ohtani deal, which we'll talk about the Giants later. Don't think it was quite on the same level as the Giants, but I think they accomplished a lot of goals that they really set out to. And for that reason, I think I would give this one a pretty firm B. It doesn't have the star power to really bump it to be an A. And then my big problem with it, more or less, is they fixed hole at the back end of the bullpen. They added Hector Neris. They got a long reliever in Yency Almonte. He sort of fits in there sort of like weirdly. He's just a guy. I like Imanaga. That's like a big prize. And they added Cody Bellinger. But they had Cody Bellinger last year, and they just kind of put him back in the lineup. So their lineup didn't really get much better in a vacuum. And for that, I can't really bump it to an A. I would give it a B.
Yeah, there was a time when we were sort of live reacting to all of this that it felt like an A. And I think it was because it felt like they made some smart moves earlier in the offseason, namely Imanaga, who I think is probably the best value in free agency,
I
just
agree.
how much they paid for him. And then they added Bellinger, and it really felt like, okay, this is an A offseason. But seeing it on paper with all the additions and subtractions written out, the subtractions aren't big, but like you said, they made solid additions, ones that filled very wide and clear holes, but it wasn't anything that was like over the top A. So I'm on the same page. It's like, this is a super solid B. And I wouldn't even be like, I wouldn't even beg, like, please do more, like push this to an A. I feel like they did everything they needed to do. Like, Imanaga is such a good signing. Busch gives you a lot of upside on the right side of the infield. The bullpen gets a lot deeper with Almonte and Neris, and then Cody Bellinger is like, you needed to bring him back just to make that lineup super deep. So I think they did a really, really good job this offseason, and it's a B, pushing closer to A.
Yeah, definitely. So we can move on to the Reds, which the Reds have had a pretty busy offseason. They added Emilio Pagan, Nick Martinez, Jeimer Candelario, Austin Wynns, Frankie Montas, Brent Suter, Tony Kemp, and Justin Wilson, all through free agency.
Unfortunately, Tony Kemp anymore. He's on the Orioles.
Yeah, they added him, and then I think he opted out of his contract or something like that.
Yeah, he probably had like a thing where he couldn't beat him, or like he had an option when he didn't make the team.
There were quite a few of those. Carl Edwards had one with the Cubs. Unfortunately for the Reds, they did have to subtract franchise icon Joey Votto. Harrison Bader and Nick Senzel also left through free agency. They did extend Luke Miley. So solid offseason here. A lot of guys that they added. Not really any huge names here. It's the Reds. You sort of know how the Reds are going to operate on more of a shoestring budget. How are you feeling about their offseason additions?
Yeah, it was perplexing while it was happening. Candelario was a very weird signing considering where their infield was at, and now it makes a lot of sense. I mean, with Marte out with PEDs and Matt McLain
having to have
shoulder surgery, exactly.
But they made that move like not knowing those things were going to happen.
But that's the point. That's sort of why you do that. You can never have too much depth, where you can so quickly go from having way too much depth to a point where you're like, not only does everything now fit perfectly, but we might actually not have enough depth to withstand any more injuries. So things really worked out there, and I'm really happy for a lot of the guys on the team that really needed the playing time. Will Benson, Encarnacion Strand, and Jonathan India, namely. But I think Candelario fits really well there. And then it was just, okay, now focus on your pitching. And they didn't really get anybody that makes me excited. Montas has a lot of potential, but I don't think he's going to reach that in Great American Small Park. And Pagan might be the single worst fit for that ballpark of all time. The guy is just a home run machine. And last year he was good for the first time, and it's like, I wonder why he was good for the first time. You go look at his home run to fly ball rate, and it's half what he usually has in that category. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's put him into the best home run ballpark in baseball. Like, the guy's going to get blown up, and it's going to be like, we're all going to see it from a mile away. But I think they added enough depth to the rotation that I think they have a pretty solid rotation, and they've got room to grow in the bullpen. But it's not the best offseason. I think it's a very mid C, and I think closer to D. I wouldn't say it's a bad offseason. They could have done more, but they sort of went with the solid veteran route. But it's almost D because they let Joey Votto go.
I think I'm specifically going to go with a D just for that fact, because it's extremely mid offseason, and then Joey Votto losing that, like, all right, fine. I'm typically not a huge fan of doing the huge sentimental moves, but there are exceptions where you have to. And this sort of felt like you let Joey Votto go. And I think this offseason for me is not a needle moving offseason. Their rotation desperately needed guys that like are upside guys. And I think Frankie Montas could be that. But like Nick Martinez is sort of uninspiring. He's fine, but he's extremely mid. Pagan, not great fit. Candelario is a decent one. Brent Suter's also a super weird one. Justin Wilson, super weird one too. I don't know. I think this is a D, maybe near the higher end of it, just because you lose out on the sentimental fact. Joey Votto should be retiring as a Red. That's really stupid. I'm not a big fan of this one for the Reds.
Nope.
Gonna move on straight down the line. Talk about the Milwaukee Brewers, who have added a lot of guys and lost a lot of guys. We can start with their free agent additions, which are Colin Ray, Joe Ross, Wade Miley, Eric Haas, Reese Hoskins, Jacob Junis, Gary Sanchez, and Brandon Woodruff, kind of. They've added Jake Bowers and Joey Ortiz through a trade, along with DL Hall. And they've subtracted Eric Lauer, Jesse Winker, Victor Caratini, Carlos Santana, Andrew Chafin, Justin Wilson, and Rowdy Tellez, all through free agency. And then through trade, they have lost out on Mark Canna, Abraham Toro, Tyrone Taylor, Adrian Hauser, and Corbin Burns. They did extend their top prospect, Jackson Churio, however, who will make the opening day roster. A lot of stuff to talk about here. How do you feel about the Brewers' outlook here with these 14 kajillion moves that they made?
I mean, this is like the epitome of a Brewers offseason, right? I mean,
whole bunch of guys in and out the door.
Exactly. There are a few teams that like to live in this range of always being an 80-win team and having a shot at, getting a few extra wins and making the playoffs as a wild card team, or maybe getting super lucky and winning the division. And they've been doing that for a few years. And I think the Brewers are the best at it. Honestly, like I can't think of another team that walks the line like this that does it every year. The Guardians are in the same boat where they're always doing this, and they sort of suck sometimes. But the Brewers are elite at doing this, though I don't think it lends itself to good grades in when you're looking at an offseason review, because it's so much shuffling. The Mariners are sort of similar to this as well. It's always just shuffling. You're never like going one way or another. It's you're looking to win in years of control, and you're doing all the number crunching and everything. But they got a couple interesting guys. I think it's great to see them bring back boring pitchers that helped them last year, and Ray and Wade Miley. And I don't have a ton of faith in Jacob Junis doing anything there. And Brandon Woodruff is not even going to pitch this year. Yeah, Joe Ross. Rhys Hoskins is fun. I think the Corbin Burns deal is interesting in terms of their return, but they clearly got worse. I mean, a lot of the guys that they let go weren't difference makers. Lauer sort of fell off. Winker never quite did anything. Santana and Caratini are replaceable. The bullpen is the same way. But you lost Corbin Burns. I think that's the biggest thing here. And they didn't really make a big addition there unless DL Hall does something crazy. I think it's a C. I don't think it's a D, just because they made enough moves maybe to help us forget. And the Jackson Chourio extension helps as well. But it's not the most inspiring offseason, but that's not what we've come to expect from the Brewers.
Yeah, I think I would also lean towards C. It's just like, it's super fine. It's a Brewers offseason. They added some guys, they lost some guys. But for me, it's just like, all right, well, you did the Brewers thing, but you also lost Corbin Burns, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you didn't really adequately replace him, and you didn't really replace him in the aggregate either. With you got a bunch of guys they're all right, Wade Miley, Joe Ross, Colin Ray. Yeah. It's like, okay, who honestly gives a shit? It's like, I don't know. That's sort of weird. I think Jake Bauers is super not good. Joey Ortiz is sort of interesting. DL Hall, I think, is the most interesting piece that they added in free agency, or in this period, because he was obviously part of the trade. But I think DL Hall has the potential to be a really, really good reliever. I think he has more reliever risk, but I don't think that's necessarily a downside to him. I think he could be a wipeout reliever, just sort of not an excellent starter. Just sort of a two-pitch kind of guy. Gary Sanchez was good last year, very quietly good. And he's replacing Victor Caratini for you. But it's like, all right, the Brewers lineup sucks. You added Rhys Hoskins, who now has to bounce back, and Gary Sanchez, who's going to still strike out 40% of the time or thereabouts. It's like, all right, well, how much better did you get? You sort of stayed the same spot. You spun the tires, whatever. I think it's a C. Pretty easy. I can't really make an argument either way.
Before we move on, I'm going to change my Reds pick back to a D. I had lost my gauge in terms of grading in the past couple of weeks, but yeah, it's a D for me. But I agree with you on the Brewers C.
We've been straight down the line, same prediction for all of them so far, and that may or may not stay the same when we talk about our next team, which is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have also added a whole bunch of dudes. They've added Ali Sanchez through free agency, along with Rowdy Tellez, Martin Perez, re-signing Andrew McCutchen, picking up Yasmani Grandal, Aroldis Chapman, Josh Fleming, the aforementioned Eric Lauer, Domingo Herman, and Michael A. Taylor, also aforementioned. They added through trade Edward Olivares and Marco Gonzalez in separate moves. They've only got 3 subtractions, and those are Vince Velasquez, Miguel Andujar, and Osvaldo Bido. They did extend young starting pitcher Mitch Keller. And this just feels like a bunch of guys that ended up on a baseball team. And that's sort of how the Pirates offseason goes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It feels like the Brewers, you talked about some teams just shuffle and stay in this specific 80 win range. It feels like the Pirates just do the same thing every offseason, which is add a bunch of old guys that suck ass at baseball. And I think they sort of followed suit here. some of these guys aren't complete garbage, but I definitely wouldn't call them good either. So I mean, I don't really know how to gauge this. How are you feeling about the Pirates offseason?
Yeah, it's when you look at the additions and subtractions and you sort of
real who's who of 6 years ago in baseball.
Yeah, you do the math between the additions and subtractions, and it's like, holy shit, they got so much better. They added so many guys.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's because you didn't lose anybody. It's because you don't have anybody on your team.
Right. It's sort of like it's sort of like a Royals
Rockies.
situation where it's like, it's like, for me, it's like the Royals situation, but almost like a weird Bizarro world version of that, where it's like, all right, you added all these players and your offseason has to be graded well because, okay, well, you had nobody that was good at baseball. And you added some guys
who are solid.
You had some guys that are pretty decent at baseball. This one's like, all right, you don't have shit, and you added some guys. It's like,
no, there's really nobody great here. Like, I feel like they have a lot of guys that are in the same exact mold. Marco Gonzalez, Martin Perez, Eric Lauer, Josh Fleming, Domingo Germán. I think even from a hitter side, Michael A. Taylor and Yasmani Grandal and Andrew McCutchen are all in that same boat of just like, yeah, they're going to play. They're guys that play baseball, and they might be pretty solid, but they're probably just going to be pretty mid. And then it's like you got Aroldis Chapman and Domingo Germán, and it's like, why are you doing this to your fan base? And then like the most upside you got is like Rowdy Tellez and Edward Olivares, where it's like Olivares doesn't have a clear path to playing time again, and Rowdy Tellez, I just don't see him really putting it all together in Pittsburgh. But like I said, this team is really fun. Maybe it just needs these mid guys around all the super fun young talent to help everything take off. And this is probably the year where they probably weren't going to take off anyway. Nonetheless, it's like, the math makes it a C, but like, I don't even want to give it a C because it's so boring.
The math makes it a C. But I think personality-wise and adding some of the guys that you add into that locker room, for me, are a bit of a nightmare. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a D. You've taken a team that's full of young baseball players, okay? So this is a team that is extremely, like, they're in a rebuild. Most of their star players and young guys coming up are now going to be surrounded by Domingo Germán, who just recently was basically jettisoned from the Yankees because he was an alcoholic, although he says he's never had a drinking problem and that he's going to keep drinking, which is really great and exactly what you want to hear from a guy like that. Aroldis Chapman will join Ji-hwan Bae in terms of guys that have beat up their wives or girlfriends. So not a big fan of those guys. And it's just sort of a weird amalgamation of personality types that you're now trying to cram in this locker room full of players that are young and impressionable and figuring it out, honestly, not just as young professional baseball players, but as young men. And I think if you're surrounding yourself with people like that are shitheads, I think that's a bad idea. And I think for that reason, I'm going to give it a D. I'm not a big fan of that, especially like Aroldis Chapman. Domingo Germán should be away from a baseball team until he actually gets some help and figures out what his issue is. Because it seems like he was a genuine alcoholic, and that's like, I want to shit on him, but it's also like, you should go get some help and figure that out. Aroldis Chapman is a known dickhead. Like, he is not a good person. And this is a guy that you are now going to put in this locker room full of rookies and guys that are like going to people for guidance, like vets. And it's like, okay, now you can talk to Andrew McCutchen, who is extremely well liked, super beloved, or you can talk to Aroldis Chapman, weirdo, creep.
Hey, bring Felipe Vasquez back.
Wife beater. Yeah, idiot. I don't know. It's stupid. I don't like some of the moves that they made. It's super mid, and then you add those wonky personalities. Yeah, I feel like this could be a weird tipping point to kind of make this not go as well as it should. And for that, I'm going to give it a D.
Yeah, I think I'm going D as well.
Oh, well, we got one more team to talk about, and it's the St. Louis retirement home. I mean, the St. Louis Cardinals, and it's because they've added a whole bunch of old dudes through free agency, starting with Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, Sonny Gray, Matt Carpenter. Okay, let's keep going. They added Brandon Crawford, who is like 40 years old now, and Keenan Middleton. Those are their big free agent additions, and then they traded for Andrew Kittredge. They lost a couple guys. They lost Drew Verhagen, Andrew Kisner, Juan Yepes, Dakota Hudson to free agency. They lost Tyler O'Neill in a trade with the Red Sox. They lost Richie Palacios in a trade with the Rays, and then they lost Adam Wainwright to the actual retirement home this time. The Cardinals went out and they needed to bolster their rotation, and they did so. It's just they got a whole bunch of guys that are really old. How are you feeling about the Cardinals' outlook for this? Because I'm very obviously a little skewed on it, but I would love to hear your take.
They had a clear need, and it was to get starting pitching. And they likely needed starting pitching with strikeouts, and they did not get that. I think Sonny Gray is a great addition, and I think the bullpen additions they made were very interesting as well with Keenan Middleton and Andrew Kittredge. That bullpen is now looking pretty deadly. So their pitching staff got a lot better, and I think they have enough depth in the lineup to withstand any departures or anything. I don't know. It's like I want to go B, but it doesn't have quite the oomph that it needs. I'm going to give it a B, just because they actually went out and spent money, and they addressed clear needs on their team. Though I think they could have probably easily had an A offseason if they didn't go for boring veterans like Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and Matt Carpenter. Yeah,
I think I'm a little bit more on the pessimistic side, and I'm going to go C. I don't think it. I just don't think. I know that I'm looking at it from a different lens, and it's as a rival fan, but it's also just like you needed to bolster your rotation, and you added probably outside of Sonny Gray. I like the Sonny Gray addition. The Kyle Gibson is super uninspiring, mainly because it's Kyle Gibson, and Kyle Gibson is just more or less uninspiring. You know what you're getting with him. Lance Lynn, I think, is actively on the decline. I think he is more or less a bad pitcher at this point. And you're adding into a rotation that sort of needs, like you said, you need strikeout guys. Like their roster resource right now, because Sonny Gray, I think, is not currently – I think he's still dealing with something. He's not going to start he's got like a hamstring problem or something like that.
It's
AIL. Right. But they're going to start, and just like this rotation just looks really bad outside of Sonny Gray. So the moment you take him out, it's like Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis, Lance Lynn, Steven Matz. It's like, which one of those guys can you rely on?
None.
And I don't really know. The lineup, I'm fine. Matt Carpenter, Brandon Crawford, I'm not really gonna be hateful about those moves. They're old guys, but they're depth signings. You're not getting them with the intent of all right, you're gonna go play every day. That's not gonna happen. But signing the guys in rotation, they had a huge need. And then I think even after this season, they will still likely have a huge need there. I think that it's like a weird patch job sort of plan to fix the rotation. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to work like they think it's going to work. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a C. Love Sonny Gray move. Everything else after that, it's like, super.
You convinced me. I'm also C. I think we've agreed across the board, as we are wont to do on this podcast. But I'll run it down real quick before we move on to the NL West. We both said a B for the Cubs. The Reds earned Ds from us. The Brewers got a C from both of us. The Pirates got a D from both of us. And the Cardinals got a C for both. Just, give it up for the NL Central.
Yeah.
Fuck, mid as hell.
That's the Central in general. Both Central divisions are extremely mid, and that's their DNA.
Hey, now we get to the fun division.
Hell yeah. I think this one is probably the most fun one to talk about just because it's honestly been really exciting. And we can start with the World Series runner-ups, the Arizona Diamondbacks. They've made quite a few moves. They have added Eugenio Suarez in a trade with the Mariners. They added Eduardo Rodriguez, re-signed Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in free agency. They added Jock Peterson, Tucker Barnhart, Randall Grichuk, and the aforementioned earlier in the podcast, Jordan Montgomery through free agency. They lost a few guys to free agency, though, not really of any consequence. Evan Longoria, Tommy Pham, and Kyle Lewis. They've also lost through trade Carlos Vargas, Sebi Zavala, and Dominic Fletcher, all through trade. And the more I was looking at this, the more I'm sort of liking this. How are you sort of feeling about the Diamondbacks?
Totally. They really didn't lose anyone of consequence, like you said, and they did a great job of not only keeping the band together, but improving in areas that they really needed to. I like going from Longoria to Suarez. That's an upgrade. Going from a rotation that was pretty shallow last year behind Gallen and Kelly to now one that features Eduardo Rodriguez and Jordan Montgomery, as well as the young guys they've got coming up. And then just solidifying a lineup with role players that can go underrated. Guys like Gurriel and Grichuk and Peterson are not guys that really move the needle on any one team, but when you have them all together with a team that's already pretty solid at its core, it just becomes very solid. This is such a great, like, solid B. I would be very happy if I was a Diamondbacks fan, just knowing that not only that the front office is making moves to make the team better, but that they're making smart moves. They're not going out and getting Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn and being like, hey, we address the rotation. They're getting guys that are actually going to help them. And then also not holding back other members of the team, like not blocking prospects that they have in the minors on the offensive end or on the pitching end. And they still have enough prospect capital that they could go out and acquire guys at the deadline. And we saw Jordan Lawler just go down with an injury. So they'll be relying on Geraldo Perdomo at shortstop all year. But I think they had a very, very solid, good offseason.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a little bit more positive, and I think this one might honestly have to be an A for me, just because I think you really lost nothing. They lost absolutely nothing. Longoria, Eugenio Suarez is a big upgrade on him. If not defensively, even though Longo is not the best defender anymore in his old age, fine. Eugenio Suarez, major offensive upgrade. Kyle Lewis, who cares? Tommy Pham, you've replaced him with Jock Peterson, and this lineup sort of needed a left-handed bat at this point. And I think Jock Peterson's one of the best one you could have got at that value. He's hit in the division over and over and over again now for two separate teams. I think you've added a lot here to your rotation, and I think that's one of the biggest things that is moving the needle for me. Like Randall Grichuk, who cares? Tucker Barnhart, I really like Tucker Barnhart. I think he's a great backup catcher to have. I think he's sort of universally loved around baseball by all of his teammates that have ever really been around him. I think you have a young, impressionable catcher who's got a lot of potential with Gabriel Moreno. I think he's a really good one to have there for him. But adding Erod and adding Jordan Montgomery now, and that's the big one for me. I think this was a B without Jormont, and I think now that you add Jormont in, this rotation is extremely deep. And I think the Diamondbacks would be another team, and I don't think they're in it with a shout to win the division. I think the Giants probably have a better roster than them, top to bottom. I really think that, but I am a big fan of this. I think they've done everything that they've done in their power to sort of really try to get back where they're at. And that Jormont move that makes their rotation really, really stout top to bottom. And I think I would give it an A just for that, honestly, because it's all positives and no negatives. That's the thing. It's like, sure. And typically for the ones, it's like, okay, well, there's no star power to really make it an A. Jormont is the one that makes that an A for me. I think he's a very clear 2-starter, if not 3. And I just think the depth that he provides to that rotation, to one that honestly, that's really more or less why they sort of lost the World Series. Their rotation was just pretty bad after the top 2. Their lineup, not super deep. You've, lengthened that lineup. Fine. I think it's all positives, no negatives. I would give it an A. Not a super strong, we're not doing A+. It wouldn't be close to that anyway, but it would be like an A-. And I think for that, I'm going to go ahead and give it an A.
Nice.
And now we can talk about our favorite baseball team, the Colorado Rockies, who they added some guys that play baseball, and they lost some guys that also play baseball. They traded more. Well, sort of. They extended it. Ezekiel Tovar, we already talked about that, but they made a trade for Cal Quantrill. They also added Jake Cave and Greg Jones. Those guys play baseball. And then they added Dakota Hudson and Jacob Stallings. They lost Chris Flexen and Brent Suter, and also Chase Anderson.
The Rockies are so funny. Yeah. They're so funny. They're so bad. It's so crazy. Right? It's so crazy. They suck. It's almost like they need an R. They need their own grade, an R, and the R can stand for whatever you want it to. And I'm not going to say what that might stand for. We'll say it stands for Rockies.
Just put a big frowny face in the Excel spreadsheet that we're doing.
It's great because like when I saw
frowny face and we'll move on.
when I'm putting these together, it's like I'm putting all the
They're so
additions
bad.
and then I see everybody that they subtracted. And it's like when I saw the additions, I was like, damn, they must have lost like some good players.
They don't have any
And
good
they
players
did
to
it.
lose.
They just have no good players
They're
and they
so
added
bad.
no good players. And it's like, wow, why are the Rockies so bad every year? And it's like, maybe because they go out and they get pitchers that are just terrible for their stadium. Like they've got the lowest projected strikeout rate.
God.
They've got an offense that is below league average, despite one of the best ballparks or the best ballpark in baseball. And it's just crazy year in and year out that they just do this all the time and they just sell out the stadium all the time. It's so sick. Rockies are so crazy. It's an F. They're so bad.
Yeah, easy F. They're awful, man. Oh my God.
It's so funny.
I kind of feel bad.
No.
I don't.
I've been to a
I don't
Rockies game
feel
and
bad.
they are lit. They do not care about winning. It's just about going there and having a good time.
Vibes
Yes.
only.
They are a
Yeah,
vibes team.
that-
They got your boy Cal Quantrill. That's a vibes legend.
Yeah, that guy's the GOAT. Shout out to that guy. Yeah, anyway, F, we'll move on. Talk about the Dodgers, I guess. The Dodgers added a cajillion players.
Oh my God.
So here's all their additions through free agency. They re-signed Jason Hayward. They re-signed Joe Kelly through free agency. They have added James Paxton, Ryan Brazier, re-signed Clayton Kershaw, re-signed Kike Hernandez. They have also added through free agency Teoscar Hernandez, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They have also signed a guy named Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
The gambling guy.
Yeah, there's a note on that I'm going to say here in a little bit. I think it's really funny. They also made trades for Jackson Ferris. We talked about that with the Cubs one. They got Trey Sweeney and they got Tyler Glass now. They lost, however, some guys. So through free agency, they lost Ahmed Rosario. They lost Shelby Miller, JD Martinez. They lost Lance Lynn. They also lost Julio Arias, who's an unsigned free agent because he's a girlfriend beating piece of shit. They also lost through trade Jorbit Vivas, Victor Gonzalez, Ryan Pepio, Michael Bush, Ian Cielamonte, and Caleb Ferguson. They extended 1 million players. They extended Tyler Glass now after they traded for him. They extended Max Muncy, and we talked about it earlier. They extended Will Smith. Super, super, super busy offseason for the Dodgers. And I hate that because I don't want the Dodgers to do stuff because it's really annoying. But yeah, I think on merit of getting Shohei Ohtani until he's thrown in the brig for his degenerate gambling tendencies that may or may not be a real thing. And Yamamoto, I think this one's automatically an A, and I hate that, but I sort of have to. Kind of a wild one. Did you see in the LA Times that he actually hired? So if you're unfamiliar, also slight tangent because we're going to talk about Ohtani anyway. They had the whole deal with Ipe Mizuhara. So that was his translator. Apparently he'd been stealing money from him and gambling on random sports or whatever. Shohei Ohtani recently just hired a publicist that's part of a crisis public relations firm that you want to hear some of the absolute excellent people that they've represented, Jake?
Please. Don't say Trevor Bauer.
Alec Baldwin. Johnny Depp.
Oh my.
Harvey Weinstein.
Oh no.
Danny Masterson, the guy from that 70s show
Yeah,
that raped all those
he's
women.
in jail. Oh my gosh.
Armie Hammer, rapist. Prince Andrew, rapist. And Hillary Clinton after she almost got for treason. Yes.
I don't know if that's the right guy to hire.
A real who's who of people
Great
that
people
are
that are
people that are
beloved.
not guilty of anything ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So until Shohei gets thrown in jail forever, or banned from baseball, I think it's an A just because they're good. They signed players that are really good at baseball, and they got a whole bunch of them. But yeah, that situation's goofy. We'll probably talk about that at a different point once we get more information. But that one was reported, and that is actually a thing. That's from the LA Times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sort of a weird one.
Yeah, well, I gotta as much as I hate to do it, I got to hand it to the Dodgers. This was an offseason I had been dreading for a long time because you could feel the Dodgers preparing to do something drastic. After last year's quiet offseason, it was almost guaranteed that they were going to come in here and just absolutely blow everyone out of the water for Ohtani. And even that, I think by itself might have earned them an A.
Yeah.
The fact that they doubled down and were like, no, we're not just getting Ohtani, we're getting everybody. And we're signing everybody. We're bringing the whole band back, and we're extending all the guys, and we're deferring all the money, and we're going to do it all while losing guys that were solid to our team, but are no longer really necessary. Like most of the guys that they lost, solid, but are nobody's like, oh yeah, that guy fits really well on this team still. Like they don't need Pepio, they don't need Bush, they don't need the relievers that they let go, or Ahmed Rosario. It's just like I think it's consensus that the Dodgers had the best offseason this year, and I'm not even going to argue with it. I don't think it's going to lead to a World Series or anything, but I do have to give them an A, and I think it's just one of the best off seasons we might ever witness.
I agree. Honestly, even if you just took Ohtani out and you just had Glasnow, the extensions plus Yamamoto, I honestly think that I would have given that an A. And then it's like, all right, here's Ohtani, here's Teoscar Hernandez. Here's a bunch of other guys that make our team better. It's like, man, come on. It's like, it's a perfect offseason. If you're a Dodgers fan, you're laughing, until Shohei gets thrown in jail forever. But that we're going to joke about that. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy one to sort of even debate. It's an extreme A. If we were doing A+, I think it would be an A+. We can move on. We'll talk about the Padres. And the Padres have added a whole bunch of dudes. Also, we can start with the free agent guys before we get into the multitude of trade pieces that they got. They re-signed Jurickson Profar. They signed Wandy Peralta. They got Yuki Matsui, who's another NPB import, and they got Woo-Suk Go. So another reliever. I think he was the KBO guy.
Yep.
And then through trade, they added Kyle Higashioka. They added Michael King, and they added Johnny Brito. They also added Iniel De Los Santos into the mix. And here's a whole bunch of guys that they lost. They lost Josh Hader.
Dylan Cease?
Oh yeah. They obviously got Dylan Cease. I forgot about that one. They added Dylan Cease, pretty big one. We talked about it earlier. Subtractions though, they lost Garrett Cooper. They lost Josh Hader. They lost Blake Snell, Gary Sanchez, Luis Garcia, Seth Lugo, Nick Martinez, and Michael Wacha, all to free agency. Through trade, they lost Scott Barlow, they lost Trent Grisham, they lost Steven Wilson, and they lost probably the biggest piece of them all, Juan Soto. Yeah, this one's a weird one to judge, and I sort of bouncing back and forth, but I want to hear your thoughts on the Padres before I share mine.
I mean, they really lost a lot. They did it. I think the focus early in the offseason was trading Juan Soto and addressing the bullpen. And I think it was smart for them to address the bullpen. And I like the way that they did it. I think De Los Santos is a pretty solid replacement for Barlow, and he's got more control as well. And then getting Matsui and Woo-Suk Go and Wandy Peralta, their bullpen becomes very deep. And they went with quantity over quality to replace Hader. And I think that's fine. But then you get to the offense, and it's like you just trade away Juan Soto. And, of course, adding Michael King is huge. Getting a couple of the prospects that they got, especially one to help them get Dylan Cease, also huge. So adding Michael King and Dylan Cease, I think, does a pretty good job of replacing Blake Snell and, the combination of Seth Lugo, Nick Martinez, and Michael Wacha. But the offense just had no additions. Jurickson Profar is terrible. And then Kyle Higashioka is a backup catcher. So it's like, while they were able to, fend off the loss of Josh Hader and find a way to replace the 4 starters that they lost, their bullpen and their pitching staff looks great. Once again, it's been like that, but the lineup has suddenly become one that is not pretty to look at, which has not been the case even last year when they had everybody on the team. Everybody seemed to be an all-star, and now it's like you're running Jurickson Profar as your starting left fielder. You're platooning Tyler Wade at third base. You're relying on a 20-year-old Jackson Merrill in center field. The offense clearly needed an upgrade after losing Soto, and they didn't go out and do that. I think they did a good job of treading water with all the subtractions that they had. To me, it's a C. they had a chance to do better if they had addressed the offense a little bit more, because they did such a good job of making sure that they could replace Hader and the starters from the rotation. But the way that things currently stand, this team got worse in a pretty clear way. Losing Juan Soto is not a small subtraction. So I think it's a C, because they did pretty solid at keeping the team afloat.
Yeah, I think I would go with C as well. It's just like I'm a big fan of how they reshuffled their bullpen, because their bullpen at the start of like the year pretty like mid, not great. Like it was really good at the back end and had no depth. And now it's the opposite, where it's got a lot of depth and then maybe the back end is like a little bit of a question mark.
Yeah.
Someone will step up and take that closer role. Fine. I'm super good with that. Cease plus Michael King, big fan. That lineup is brutal. It is just bad. It's outside of your top three, like Machado, Tatis, Bogarts. That lineup is not good. Like Jake Cronenworth has sort of been on the decline. Ha-Seong Kim's decent. And then after that, it's like, it just feels like a black hole. Like someone's got to step up and be productive there. And I think that lineup is one of the worst in the division. And this division includes the Colorado Rockies. So it's like, that's not good. Really not a fan. And I think that's probably what's dragging it down for me. It's just you lose Juan Soto and you didn't do anything to replace him. And like every other lineup got better, and there's pieces still available or were still available for you to try to go get, and they just didn't. They didn't even bother with it. Like Jurickson Profar should not be starting for your team. Tyler Wade, I think he's a decent player, but he's not like, he shouldn't be a starter for you every day. That's a little crazy. Jackson Merrill, I don't even think he's 21 years old yet, is like, and he's still learning how to play center field. He's your starting center fielder. It's like, that's not ideal. I think this one's a C. Pretty easy for me. We got one more team to talk about, and it's a pretty good one. San Francisco Giants, a whole lot of guys that they've added. One guy through a trade is Robbie Ray, who was obviously the trade with the Mariners, and then a whole bunch of guys through free agency. We talked about Blake Snell. We talked about Matt Chapman. So they've added Blake Snell, Matt Chapman through free agency. They've also added Nick Ahmed, Jorge Soler, Jordan Hicks, Tom Murphy, and Jung-Hoo Lee through free agency. They've lost a couple guys, though, also to free agency. They lost the aforementioned J.D. Davis, talked about him earlier. They lost out on Alex Wood, John Brebbia, Jacob Junis, Jock Peterson, Brandon Crawford, Scott Alexander, and Sean Manaea. And then through trade, they've lost Tony Disco, Anthony DeSclafani, Mitch Haniger, and Ross Stripling, with no extensions to talk about. I think this is a really strong offseason. And if it were not for the Dodgers having the offseason of the century, I think this would be the best offseason that we have talked about so far. Just top to bottom. And until the Chapman move and until the Snell move, it's like, it was still good. Still good. Probably a B. Those two moves, just bring them up almost 2 full tiers. It's just really, really good. A lot of the guys that they lost, also, you can really stomach losing, especially when you're adding big names like this to your rotation. I'm like the Jordan Hicks move, and it's honestly right now proving pretty obvious that the Giants cheating lab is real and is working, because he looks like complete nails as a starter. Blake Snell, disgusting. Matt Chapman fits that team like a glove. I predicted him to go there just because like that fit is so obvious. Robbie Ray, also really good. Jung-Hoo Lee, I like his potential. Depends on if he can actually hit for some power. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of what the Giants have done this offseason. Pretty obvious A for me.
Yeah, I was super pumped about this offseason. I sort of broke it down a little bit at the top of the show. But, you know, coming off the Ohtani signing, I was not too excited about this. And they sort of distracted me, getting Jung-Hoo Lee, Tom Murphy, Robbie Ray, Jordan Hicks, and Jorge Soler. But like you said, it was the final touches of adding Chapman and Snell that pushed this over the top. I think it's important to note, despite how many losses that they have in the subtractions department, none of them are consequential subtractions. All of them, honestly, in my opinion, are guys that you sort of want to get rid of. Either they're super mid or they're getting paid too much. I think like a all of them are fine, but they're most of them, except for maybe a couple, are guys that I would even like want on most teams. I think Alex Wood and Stripling and DeSclafani are fine, but they're not guys you want to be spending double-digit millions on to just like block pitchers on your roster. Jacob Junis and John Brebbia are, replaceable relievers. And I think Jock Peterson and Sean Manaea are really like the only notable ones that are actually going to be like helping most teams. Obviously JD Davis got a full-time role, but yeah, I just think like a lot of the guys that they let go were very smart to let go. And I was glad to see them get out from under the contracts that they had signed just last year, because they really did not do a good job. But I'm loving the way that the Giants are looking. They improved their defense with Matt Chapman and Jung-Hoo Lee, which was huge, a huge point of their offseason, because they were like the worst defensive team in baseball last year. And you got a guy like
terrible
Logan Webb. Yeah, and you got a guy like Logan Webb, who's a ground ball pitcher, as your top guy. And they got Tom Murphy, who's a very reliable catcher that pairs very well with their young starter, Patrick Bailey. And then to find a lot of upside in the rotation with Jordan Hicks, Robbie Ray, and Blake Snell, when you already have a pretty solid core and crazy pitching development that could basically turn anybody into a starter. And you get a bunch of guys that have shown that they don't even need the cheating lab to be good. And then on top of that, you get Jorge Soler, which is what this lineup has been missing for so long, is a big bopper in the middle to hit 30 plus home runs. We haven't seen anybody hit 30 home runs in San Francisco since Barry Bonds retired. We're coming up on 20 years since that happened. So I think they really just attacked everything. There's obviously still room for this team to add more, mostly in the bullpen. But with teams like this that are so good at development and pitching development more specifically, I'm usually fine with them having a few relievers they can rely on, and then just sort of, shuffling guys through there as they sort of figure things out, see if somebody sticks. But I'm really loving the makeup of this team. If they stay healthy, they should have a pretty good shot at competing with the Dodgers. I don't want to sound too much of a homer, because the team is definitely clearly a step below the Dodgers. But I think will give them a run for their money, and they've got a very, very good shot at making the wild card. This is an A for me.
Definitely. That's all we have for our division rundowns. We've got 2024 predictions to go down. So you want to do this
before we do that? Who do you think had the top 3 off seasons? Now that we've done everybody.
Everybody?
Yeah. Out of everybody, I mean, it's clearly the Dodgers number 1. I think Giants are top 3, maybe number 2.
I would go Dodgers, Giants, and then I would need to think about it.
I'm trying to remember who we gave an A to. I think we
That's
gave
what
an
I'm
A
also trying to remember.
To you gave an A to the Yankees.
I did give an A to the Yankees.
We almost got there with the Mariners.
Yeah.
The D-backs were like a very solid B, and so were the Cubs. I think those teams are in the running. The Braves were, doing their thing as always, and the Mets sort of.
I think I was pretty big on the Astros too.
Yeah, you were higher than I was. I think for me, the number 3 is between the Cubs and the D-backs, and I think I would go D-backs.
I'll go Cubs then and be a homer. We'll do that. We'll do.
It's all in the NL.
All NL. Yeah.
Yankees, but Yankees in the top 5 for sure. And I think Rays or Mariners or Astros always got to be up there, and maybe you could even consider the Braves probably.
Fair. So do you want to run down their predictions then? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, well, we did way too early predictions at the beginning of February. So I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. Just sort of like, solidify things before we head into the season. Maybe talk a little bit about what we're excited for tomorrow. But yeah. Who do you think is going to win each division? AL East.
AL East. Let's go. Orioles.
Orioles. Yeah, I've been sort of concerned with how their pitching's going.
It'll be fine.
You think so?
I think it'll be fine. I think I'm going to be really optimistic on them. I'm going to go with Orioles.
I just think the Rays are like they're just such a safe team. They're just going to come out on top. Where it's just like all these other teams have such clear problems with the Orioles and the pitching staff, and the Red Sox just not doing enough. The Yankees with all their injuries, and the Blue Jays not doing enough. I just think the Rays just end up on top. All right, who you got in the AL Central?
AL Central, I got Royals. That was my way too early prediction. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to be wild. We're going to go Royals.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah, it's a tough division because it's like every team is bad.
Yeah,
I don't think
the Royals will be the least bad in that division.
Sure. I don't think the Royals are quite there. And I still think the Twins, despite having a pretty bad, I think we gave them an F in terms of offseason. I still think that they have so much talent on their team. That's why they could afford to lower the payroll and not do enough. But I really like the Twins rotation this year with Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober and Louis Varland. And it's just a crazy rotation. And despite having Yohan Duran out, I think that the Twins are likely to win that division, though I would love to see the Royals do something. Okay, AL West.
Astros.
This division is tough because I'm not confident about anybody.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to go with the old guard. I'm still going to go with the Astros.
Yeah.
Rangers feel like a good one too, but the Astros are just always good. I feel like they'll edge it by like maybe 2 games. I think the Astros will win the ALS.
Yeah, I don't like how the Rangers have been working their rotation. And obviously the Angels and A's aren't really in it. And the Astros are, I don't know. There's something about the Astros that feels like this is the year where they start going away from that winning the AL pennant every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at the point now where it's like the Mariners don't have the immaculate vibes they had 2 years ago, but they still have a super fun team. And we got to the point this offseason where we were giving them a B in terms of what they did with their transactions. And I love their pitching. And I think they still got room to grow. I'm going with the Mariners winning the division.
That is
okay. National League East.
Braves.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. I think I'm going with the Braves also. I really don't like they're so good.
Yeah.
NL Central. I think we might be on the same page.
Cubs.
Yeah, I'm also going Cubs. I think the Brewers' reign is over. The Cardinals aren't going to be able to recover from last year, and I don't think the Reds and Pirates did enough this offseason to take that big next step. While the Cubs are a very interesting team and narrowly missed last year. NL West.
Giants.
Ooh. You know what? I made this mistake in the postseason predictions last fall when I was like, I could have easily picked the Diamondbacks over the Dodgers, and I didn't, just because I just was like, I'd rather be right than root
I don't care.
Exactly. I'm going for the Giants, baby.
The Giants.
Screw the Dodgers.
Giants winning the NL West by
All right, Giants. Okay.
Lose all their games.
Okay, so we both had the Giants, we both had the Braves, and we both had the Cubs. NL West is just chalk right now, or National League is chalk. AL East, you had the Orioles, I had the Rays. AL Central, you had the Royals, I had the Twins. And AL West, you had the Astros, I had the Mariners. Okay, so if we were to get to a World Series, who do you think the matchup would be between?
I gotta think about that one a little more.
I can talk through it a little bit. I just think, I mean, you always got to consider wild card teams.
That's what I'm doing. I'm like, I gotta get in the tank for this one.
Like I don't know. It's really hard to tell this earlier in the year, like
it is
which team. I've done it before, but I don't know. I feel like it's going to be the Mariners or the Rays. There's something about the Rays in the playoffs recently that they just haven't been doing it. I think the Mariners have a shot to make the playoffs. They're just built so well for that stage. And I think this is going to be the year of Julio, honestly.
Let's go Mariners, Braves.
Mariners, Braves is what I'm feeling as well.
Or Mariners, Phillies. I think that one is also one that I've got kind of on my mind.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too. I want to go Homer and just do Giants. Yeah, You know what? Screw it. I'll say Mariners versus Giants. Giants are winning the World Series.
Giants in 4.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Let's go. I kind of like the Mariners pick. You swayed me.
Yeah,
I'll go I'll just go Mariners Braves. I'll go boring. We'll go Mariners Braves.
And then the Mariners win.
Yeah, we'll do Mariners in 6.
Great. All right. Who's your NL MVP?
NL MVP. Oh, Otani's not gonna throw, so it's like,
Look, I can read you the odds right now.
I'm looking at the odds. Let's go. I want to pick like a weird one. Bryce Harper. We'll go Bryce Harper again.
I'm going Tatis. I think I went with Tatis. Way too early predictions. How about you do a dark horse after that? Somebody like lower.
They're the same. He has slightly lower odds than Tatis.
Yeah, I think O'Neal Cruz is like the really fun one.
I picked him a couple years ago. I like Pete Alonso. Let's go a different Braves guy and be weird, and we'll go Austin Riley.
Okay. All right, and then in the American League, I think I'm sticking with Julio. I think it's Julio's year.
See, like I wanted to pick Julio, but now I got to pick someone different.
I think it's either Julio or Bobby Witt. Honestly, one of those guys.
Royals are winning the division, right? So I'm going with Bobby Witt. Jr.
Yeah.
Bobby Witt Jr. is going to go 40-40.
I think a fun one would like see Vlad get back on track.
A fun one for me would be Mike Trout. Complete resurgence season, winning another. I like that one. I'm going Bobby Witt / Mike Trout. It's going to be one of them two.
That is fun. Okay, what about Cy Young in the American League?
Luis Castillo. I'm going to double down because I think he could have won it last year. Struggled with some weird injury and inconsistency. I think Luis Castillo is going to win a Cy Young before his career's over, and I think it's going to be this year.
The AL is so much fun. Picking between Cole Reagans, Tarek Skubal, and George Kirby is so difficult. Reagans. Ooh. I'm going to say it's the boy Cole Reagans. He's going to do it.
I would really appreciate that because he's on my team.
Yeah. Yes. All right. National League, who you got?
Justin Steele.
Really? I'm going Homer as well. Logan Webb, baby.
I was going to see like that one's – the NL's less fun. There's less fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, the fun guys are all injured now. Ari Perez and
I know it's
Kodai Senga's injured. Imanaga's fun, but yeah, most of it's like
I don't think
Jordan Montgomery has good odds. It's like that's not happening.
Yeah, he's got decent odds. One that I think would be absolutely wild would be Bobby Miller. But I want to go Justin Steele. We'll go Homer picks for that one. I like the Logan Webb one. I'll do Justin Steele.
All right. And then American League Rookie of the Year, who you got?
I want to go with one of the Rangers guys, but I think I'm going to go with Carter and not Langford.
Langford somehow has the best odds now.
I know.
That happened fast.
I also have him on my team, though, and I kind of like Parker Meadows' odds.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a good bet if you were to bet on that.
Don't hate it.
Yeah. I think I don't know. It's always like when you go with chalk like this, it's been working the most recent years. But like with Holiday there and Colt Keith and even Sedan Rafael is really interesting. Guys like Mookie Betts Jr.
It's like
I think I'm going with
Sedan strikes out too much for me. I thought about that one. I was like, I feel like he could either pop off or he's going to also strike out 40% of the time and just completely flounder for like a month or two, and that'll take him out of it.
I think he's too young. I think he needs a couple more years. I'm going Langford. I'm just going straight up chalk there. I do have him on our fantasy league, so a little bit biased, and I want that to happen. But the guy looks so legit.
Yeah, he looks sick. But I like Carter. I like the experience that Carter basically has already won a World Series and then still has a chance to win Rookie of the Year. I think he's more adapted to it. Like Langford's showed out in spring training, but I think Carter, he's already had
They're out in the World Series.
a lot more than a cup of coffee
Yeah.
to sort of gauge it. I like Carter's odds. Let's go Carter.
All right. And then National League is very different, where it's like American League, you have just like clear like top prospects in baseball. And the National League's like, how about everybody that just came from overseas and also one of the top prospects in baseball? Who you got in the National League?
Japanese starting pitcher Shota Imanaga.
I'm literally on the same exact page, brother. I can't go Jung-Hoo Lee, and
He's
I
gonna
don't
strike out 400.
I think Imanaga's the guy. I think he's the man.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Shota. He's gonna give up a bunch of home runs, but he's gonna have like a 3.6 ERA, and he's gonna strike out like 280 guys.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Okay, well that's the predictions, but we do have games tomorrow. Did you see some already got rained out?
No, I did not.
Yeah, Brewers Mets is postponed and Braves Phillies is postponed. So that sucks. Really
hopefully
sucks.
Hopefully we'll get like a snow game like a couple years ago with Miggy and
that was sick.
Who did they play?
That
was super sick.
Guardians, wasn't it?
I think they was the
Shane Bieber.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, the Brewers Mets game was supposed to be the first game of opening day at 10 a.m. Pacific time, but now we'll have to wait until 12, which is 3 o'clock your time, to see the Angels and Orioles open it. But which game are you most excited to watch? Obviously, you want to see like your Cubs go out there, but considering both teams and like the starting pitching matchup, who are you most? Oh God, Cubs Rangers, Steele versus Eovaldi. That's your game.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm the most excited for because it's my boys, Justin Steele. It's the pride of Lucedale, Mississippi, and it's my guy Nathan Eovaldi, the greatest pitcher that God's ever put on the face of the planet. I don't know. I got to see the slate of games. Let's look.
I'm looking right now. We got Logan Webb versus Yu Darvish, Bieber versus Alex Wood.
I'm stoked for that one. I love Yu Darvish. He's one of my guys too.
We got Patrick Sandoval versus Corbin Burns, Josiah Gray versus Frankie Montas, Miles Mikolas versus Tyler Glasnow, Jose Barrios versus Zach Eflin, and I think my favorite is Twins Royals, Pablo Lopez versus Cole Reagan.
That one is gas. I kind of like that one.
If you like pitching, that one's gonna be awesome.
I think an underrated one. I gotta say, there's two that are pretty interesting for me. That are not ones that we've already said. I kind of really mess with Tariq Skubal versus Garrett Crochet. I get to see Garrett Crochet's first actual start. And then Skubal's like a dark horse Cy Young guy. I think that's kind of interesting. And then the late game at 10-10, Luis Castillo, my Cy Young picks, and Brian Bayo. We talked about him, young guy versus Luis Castillo. I think that one could be a pretty fun matchup.
I think Yankees Astros should also be pretty hotly contested.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super pumped for baseball to start tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
You know, I am working remote, so I can just get as many games up on one screen as possible.
Friday's Phillies Braves game would have been a really sick opening day matchup. Zach Wheeler and Spider
would have been.
That sucks.
Yeah, we'll have something to look forward to. But yeah, I'm super pumped. I honestly feel like I'm more excited about this season than I've been for maybe since like 2021.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what it is, but I've been freaking locked into baseball this offseason, and I am ready for the season to start. Ready for my fantasy moves to pay dividends. You have no idea how many drafts I've helped other people with. But yeah, you're looking to defend your
my top 3 finish in this
over me is all that matters. But our home league's going to be very competitive and
very respectfully hold that. I didn't get any of the Dodgers players for the Soul Series, so I'm a little behind.
I know I'm in second place, baby.
Congratulations. I couldn't bring myself to drop any of my guys. I'm like, I don't have anyone I want to drop for this.
I got to figure some stuff out before.
One picked up like Gavin. Someone picked up like Gavin Stone. I'm like, I'm not gonna drop any of my players for like, damn Gavin Stone or Kike Hernandez.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to do that right now.
The guys whose name whose team name was Los Doyers, just changed it to Ipe did it.
Oh, nice. That's sick.
Yeah, but how are you feeling? You ready for the season? You feel like we did a good job this offseason to set you up?
I think so. I'm pretty stoked for the season to start. I'm just really excited. I don't really have to work during the summer, so I'm just gonna sit and drink beer and watch baseball most of the days. It's gonna be a dream come true. I'm excited for my fantasy team. I think that my team is either complete garbage or like really sick. It depends on if all the players actually end up hitting as my lottery tickets because I need some of them too.
Hey, I can guarantee you won't finish last place.
Yeah, I would be pretty hurt if I did.
You'd have to like delete the app from your phone and drop all of your players.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
There are people in the league that actively sabotage their own teams because they don't know what they're doing, and basically just like setting your lineup every day, you're going to win. But yeah, I
got some guys that I think aren't ass at baseball on my team, so I think I have a chance.
All right, well, let's play ball, buddy.
Yeah. Let's actually go out and check out the Athletes Hub, who sponsor our podcast, and check them out at theathleteshub.org and on their Twitter page at Athletes Hub, where you can check out every time that we go live. So if you want to watch us live, find us there. Do it on Facebook. Really cool. Follow my Twitter at DVSBird. It's been on the screen the whole time in 2 separate places. And you can follow Jake Crumpler at Jake Crumpler, where he will undoubtedly be posting a bunch of stuff that will help you win your fantasy baseball leagues this season. Check out all the stuff from his friends that also write for the same site that he does that will help you win your fantasy leagues.
Yeah, go check out pitcherlist.com. Go check out baseballhq.com. Pitcherlist is the best website you can use for winning your fantasy baseball league. Just incredible content all year long, every single day. And Baseball HQ, also right up there with one of the best fantasy baseball websites. But yeah, definitely make sure to go support both of those websites if you want to win your fantasy baseball league. And that's not even like coming from somebody who works there.
That's coming from me, who had I've watched baseball forever. I've played fantasy football. I'm in one fantasy football league. I've only ever really done it one time. Last year, fantasy baseball, everything, follow it, because this league has slightly different rules. All I did was read the articles every day. Nick Pollock, who to stream,
legend,
reliever ranks, hitter rankings, because it's not just only pitchers, and just took it, did my own research, used a grain of salt, all that stuff, and I came in third, and I'm pretty proud of that. Gonna do it again this year. Hopefully, finish a little better. Site is gas. It will 100% get you competing in your fantasy league if you have nowhere else to start. Just go read all their stuff.
That's right.
I drafted my team specifically off of Nick Pollock's primer and my brain. So if I do bad, you can blame me and not Nick Pollock, because that guy actually knows what he's doing.
No, yeah. The crazy thing about following Nick's rankings all the time is not only do you have somebody that you can trust, but if you're reading everything that he puts, if you read the notes that he has all across everything, it's you will get such a greater understanding of pitching and what makes a pitcher good, rather than oh, I think this guy's better than this guy, but I have no idea why.
That's the thing. It's not just hey, this guy sucks, this guy's good, pick him up. It's completely in depth. It gives you a whole lot of things. Check out the PLV stuff. I've been kind of obsessed with doing that recently. If I see a picture I like at all, I go check out the PLV thing, along with Baseball Savant, because I'm a nerd. But
we got Baseball Savant on Pitcher List.
I know. That's why I like it. So yeah, go check out all that stuff. And really just check back in with us throughout the season. We're going to be getting through 100 episodes this year, and we're going to be really on track with baseball this go around. That's all we have for this time, though. Catch you later. Peace.